Hello everyone, welcome to Come Sit at My Table. Melissa and I sure are happy to have you here for our video today. We are making a recipe from our cookbook, and I'm just going to tell you right up front that this recipe, the dish we're making today, probably holds more memories and is more nostalgic for me than any recipe in our book or any recipe that I have. I'll talk to you more about the reason for that as we make this very affordable, quick, delicious dish. It's something that I absolutely love. It tastes like home to me, and I think it's something you're going to love if you give it a try. Let's talk about what we're going to use. No, wait a minute. I want to tell you that it is on page 159 in our cookbook. So if you have a copy of our cookbook, you can turn to page 159. And I love the way our cookbook folds back so that you can fold it back and set it up and use it while you cook. If you don't have a copy of our cookbook, you can go right below this video. You'll find a description box. In that box, it's going to say creamed tomatoes on biscuits. If you'll click anywhere in that box, the box will expand. You'll find the written recipe right there. Melissa always puts the recipe written out right there for you. Under that recipe, you're going to see the word more. If you click the word more, that box is going to expand even further. You will find our mailing address if you want to mail us recipes. And under that mailing address, you're going to find a link to our publishing company. It's reformationpublishers.com, where you can order our cookbook if you'd like to have a copy. And we invite you to do that. We'd love for you to have a copy. All right, let's talk about what we're going to use to make our creamed tomatoes on biscuits. We're going to start with biscuits. Now, I'm going to tell you that growing up, we didn't usually have canned biscuits. My mom or my dad usually whipped up some homemade biscuits because, well, I don't think we had canned biscuits. I'm not sure if we did or not, but it was probably cheaper to make biscuits. But occasionally, as I got older, my mom would do them with canned biscuits. And that's what I'm using today. I'm just using some Grands. I think these are Southern, I don't know what they are. Yeah, Southern homemade biscuits. I don't like the flaky biscuits for this dish because I like chunks of biscuits in this dish. But if you want to use the flaky, you can.
And we do have a video for biscuits on our channel too.
Absolutely. We've made biscuits.
Make them.
Yeah, that's right. We've made biscuits a few times on this channel. If you would rather make homemade biscuits, God bless you, make homemade biscuits. That'd be great. The next thing we need is 1 quart of diced tomatoes. Now, if you don't have your own home canned diced tomatoes, that's okay. You can buy a can of diced tomatoes. Now, a quart of tomatoes is going to be 32 ounces. If you buy a can at the store, it's 28 ounces. So it's a little bit less, but it's close. And I always use diced tomatoes. I don't use crushed. I know that my dad occasionally would use tomato juice. It was good, but I just like the chunks of tomatoes in this. So I always use diced, but that's up to you. I really do encourage you to use diced tomatoes. The next thing you're going to need is sugar. Now, I didn't have this recipe for a long time, and not long before my dad passed away, I said, Dad, would you teach me to make creamed tomatoes on biscuits? Because I didn't want him to leave us and me not have this recipe. So he said to me, I'm not sure how much sugar, probably 2 to 3 tablespoons. I always use 3 tablespoons. If you want to cut back, 2 tablespoons is fine because he said 2 to 3 tablespoons. But I'm just going to tell you, this is 3 tablespoons. The next thing you need is salt and pepper. How much? Well, in typical Ray Wyatt fashion, he said, oh, I don't know, just take your salt shaker and your pepper shaker and shake them 5 times. So you know what I do? I take my salt shaker, my pepper shaker, and I shake them 5 times.
And it turns out perfectly, so.
It turns out wonderfully.
There you go.
If you want to leave out the salt, you can. If you have an issue with salt, you can leave it out. But tomatoes are just so much better with salt. So 5 shakes of your salt shaker and 5 shakes of your pepper shaker. All right. Then you're going to need 2 tablespoons of butter. You're going to need 1/4 cup of water and 2 tablespoons of cornstarch. We're going to dissolve the cornstarch in that 1/4 cup of water. I can remember when I was little, when my mom would make this, instead of cornstarch, she always used flour, all-purpose flour. And so when my dad was telling me how to make it, I'll tell you what I did. I actually had him come to the kitchen and he made it. And I stood and watched him and wrote down what he did. And he would tell me, okay, I'm using this much of this. I'm doing 5 shakes of salt and pepper. And I wrote it down as he made it right here at the stove. But I said to him, Dad, I remember that you and Mom would use all-purpose flour, not cornstarch. And he said, oh, yeah, years ago when we didn't have cornstarch, we always used all-purpose flour. And I said, so how much flour would we use? And he said, if you're going to use all-purpose flour instead of cornstarch, you need 4 tablespoons. So it's 2 tablespoons of cornstarch or 4 tablespoons of all-purpose flour. That's it. That's everything that's in it. You can see how affordable this is. It's some biscuits, tomatoes, sugar, salt, pepper, butter, water, and your thickener, either flour or cornstarch. All right, we're going to get started by making our biscuits. You want to get those in the oven before you start making your creamed tomatoes because those will cook a lot quicker than your biscuits will bake. So let's get our biscuits in the oven. All right, our biscuits are in the oven. I'm putting my tomatoes in my pan. We want all that in there. And guys, this is so easy. It's almost ridiculous. We're just going to add our sugar to our tomatoes. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And now we're going to add 2 tablespoons of butter. There's 1 and 2. And that's it. We're going to let that come to a boil. And when it comes to a boil, we will stir our water and our cornstarch together and add it. We're making a slurry. You know, when you add water and cornstarch or flour together, you're making a slurry. It's just a thickener. We'll pour it into our boiling tomatoes and they'll be ready. All right, I'm going to bring this to a boil. Well, I told you that I was going to explain to you why this is such a memorable recipe for me. That's because my family ate this a lot when I was growing up. I didn't know at the time that the reason we had it so much, so often, was because it was cheap. Because, you know, my dad was a pastor in West Virginia, and the truth is, when he started there, I think they were only paying him $35 a week. And he was teaching school. He taught school the first year we were there, just so he would have money to feed us. And so
school teachers make a huge amount of money too, right?
He didn't make much more teaching school in Richwood than he made as pastor. But we made do. And one way we made do was that we grew a large garden every summer. I mean a large garden. And we all worked in it. And then my mom and my dad canned everything that we grew or froze it. And my dad always raised a beef and a hog and butchered those in the fall and put the meat in the freezers so that we would have meat to eat throughout the year. And, you know, I can remember when I would come home from school and my mom would say we were having creamed tomatoes on biscuits. I was always so excited because I loved this dish. I didn't know it was a cheap dish. I didn't know it was something that we were having because it was affordable. I just knew it was good. And so I loved it. And then, you know, the older I got and the more that he was paid, the better he was paid, the less often we had this, but we still had it occasionally. And occasionally I would even say, hey, could we have creamed tomatoes on biscuits? And I'm sure my mom and dad thought, you've got to be kidding. That's really what you're asking for breakfast or dinner? And we did have it for breakfast a lot. We would have it for both meals. And that was what we had when we had creamed tomatoes on biscuits. That's all we had. That was our meal. And it was plenty. We loved it. And I still do. I'm just going to tell you, this takes me home. More than just about anything I make, this takes me back to being a 6-year-old little boy in West Virginia.
And so this was going in as the thickener, right?
This went in to thicken. Now, Melissa, what did you tell me about creamed tomatoes on biscuits?
Well, not to act like we were rich, because we weren't by any means, but we did not have this dish. This was a new one until I came into the Wyatt world. First time you all talked about having this, I didn't know what to expect. It's very good, but it was a new dish for me.
Yeah, I just never, it just didn't occur to me that Melissa had never had this. And the first time that we had it, she said, what'd you say we're having? I said, we're having creamed tomatoes on biscuits. She had no clue what that was.
We always raised a garden. We had lots of tomatoes.
Yeah, your parents always
We
had a
had
garden.
a big garden, but for some reason that was not something that we prepared from.
And you know, it's very possible this was something my mom and dad created just because they needed something cheap to feed
Oh, I
me.
bet people will tell us if they've had it or not.
I would hope so, man. I hope people have had this and enjoyed it their whole lives. Okay, we're just going to let this sit here and simmer. I'm going to turn it all the way to low and let it just sit here and simmer until our biscuits are ready. And then we'll put together our creamed tomatoes on biscuits. All right, we are ready to eat some creamed tomatoes on biscuits. I'm only going to do part of a biscuit here because Melissa and I are having this for dinner tonight. We are having an affordable Wyatt dinner. So I'm just going to do a little bit here to show you. I just take my biscuit, break it up into chunks, put my tomatoes right over top of it. And then there's one more thing that you have to do. You have to put a pat of butter right on top of it. And let it melt down over your tomatoes and biscuits. Now that, folks, is home cooking. That is country comfort food.
Taking you home.
It does. Takes me home every time. All right, babe. Are you going to take the first bite?
I'm going to just wait until I eat because I'm already dressed for church tonight, and I'm afraid I'll get that on my dress.
You don't want me to spill it on you.
Yeah.
And I probably would.
I think there's a potential if we're not careful, so
Yeah.
I'll just wait. But I already know because this is not something we've never had before. This is so good.
Yeah.
We're actually teaching a class at church tonight, so
Yeah.
I'll get ready a little early tonight.
Okay, here we go.
Bringing back the memories.
Yep. Takes me right back to Craigsville, West Virginia. I'm not kidding you. I think I could eat it every day for the rest of my life. It's that good. We sure do appreciate you being here for our video. We would like to ask you to go right below the video and click that like button. That helps us build our channel because the more people who click it, the more times YouTube will share our video. So that would really help us if you'd do that. If you haven't before, we invite you to click that subscribe button that's right under the video. There's a little notification bell beside of it for you to click, and then you'll see the word all. If you'll click those, that will subscribe you to our channel, and you'll receive a notification every time we put on a new video, which we do every Sunday, Wednesday, and Friday. Also, at the very bottom of the page, there's a place for you to leave a comment. We would love to hear from you. If you grew up eating creamed tomatoes on biscuits or some variation of that, I would love to hear your story. I would love to know if you enjoyed this as much as I did. Melissa and I certainly do appreciate that you have been here for our video today. And we want you to remember that you are always welcome to come sit at my table. Have a great day.